This is Meridian, an unmodded vanilla city with plenty of charm. It's got a bustling, walkable downtown and lots of cozy, car-dependent suburbs. But it's also missing a few obvious features, especially given its prime location next to a resource-rich bay and natural harbor. So today I'm collaborating with Paradox Interactive to give Meridian a proper Bridges and Ports DLC makeover. We'll be building a fully modular container port, a modular fishing port, and a modular oil port. We'll also explore some new zones and signature buildings. This DLC releases on October 29th, which is also when I'll be sharing this save game for free on my Patreon, in case you'd like to explore or redesign the ports once the DLC drops. You can even sign up now for free, so you don't miss it. Without further ado, let's build some ports. Alright, so we have quite a few things to implement today, as this DLC is pretty jam-packed with features, but the thing I'm most excited about is the super flexible new container ports. So much fun to work with, and you can build whatever you want, basically. So for a city the size of Meridian, you can choose to go big, small, medium-sized, whatever fits the narrative of the city. Either way, I have purchased 2 tiles right here because I imagine this part of the bay is well shielded from rough weather due to this small peninsula, and it also just kind of felt natural since we have a bunch of train infrastructure nearby, which we could then implement for some easy freight rail connections. Now, to showcase the flexibility of this new system and hopefully make the look and narrative even more interesting, Meridian's container port is technically going to be divided into 2 main projects. One which was built during the 40s, which can handle a certain size of container ships, the smaller one basically, and a more modern 1980-1990 extension that can handle modern full-sized container ships. So we're gonna see if we can make this possible visually and also functionally. Anyways, we're gonna have to do a bit of terraforming at first, so let's get to that. So we've now terraformed the original port of Meridian, which sits closest to the downtown core and along some more shallow waters. And we've also terraformed the more modern expansion to the port, which still allows for flow through the Meridian River, but at the same time sits further away from downtown in terms of noise, but also alongside some deeper waters. So I've just quickly bought these 2 additional tiles so that we can actually fit in the massive shipping cranes on this side of the new expansion, and it's about time we add in the port quays. So these are all new roads, or quays rather, specifically made for this port DLC, and just having some snap to shoreline and snapping to 90-degree angles on, we should be able to make a pretty decent setup here. So I'm gonna move to about as close as I can to the shoreline, and then I'm going to branch out, and we have no elevation changes, which is pretty much perfect. And we're just gonna move to about here and then go 90-degree angles up. And then I think I'm going to enable all snapping and branch out from this segment so that there's a bit of symmetry onto this point over here. So this is obviously going to be an elevated segment, and I'm going to remove it as soon as we've bridged across. So now that we are across to the other side, I just want to get this segment in place, and I want to get this key segment in place, and then get rid of the, well, it's not even a bridge actually, so it's pretty much blocking the Meridian River, which I don't think we want. Now, rather importantly, this port key is the only network that supports the placement of container cranes and passenger terminals. So any segment you wish to add these features to needs to be a port key. But any other segment can be downgraded just as well to any of these other networks for a more slim look, and that is exactly what I'm going to do, because I don't think the key areas sitting in here leading to the river needs to be this wide at all. This process can be a little finicky and require a bit of extra terraforming, but I think it's all worth it. Let's place the main port gates and actually start this thing. I'm just gonna quickly grab a road and then branch out at a 90-degree angle because I want the port gate to be perfectly aligned with this specific key here. Then I'm gonna grab the medium port, which allows for most of the features and upgrades, and it isn't completely oversized like the large port would be for a port of this size. I'm gonna align it. If you're wondering why I added the main port gate to the more recent expansion and not the original port, which might historically make more sense, it's because I expect most traffic to move through here, and the cool thing we can do to fit the narrative is that we have this small and medium auxiliary port gate upgrade, which basically provides additional entry points. But in our case, in fitting with the narrative, we are of course just going to treat this like the original main gate to the port. So what I'm just gonna do is I'm just gonna quickly get one of the port roads added way out here, and then we're just gonna add the medium auxiliary port gate. And I think aesthetically it ties pretty well into the narrative, this being the pretty humble original gate to the port, and this being the more modern edition built to future-proof higher traffic volumes. To build and manage an existing port, you don't do it through the transportation menu, you do it through clicking the actual main gate. I've just renamed it the Trades Port of Meridian because I'm very creative and it adds a bit of extra flair. But everything is done through upgrades, just like the auxiliary gate we just added. Now, an awesome feature is that we actually have two different types of container cranes. So functionally they do the same, they cost the same, but one is a lot bigger and more modern looking than the other. So let's grab the older looking versions and just add two of those to the original container port of Meridian. How cool these look. They are just fantastic assets in their own right. But the really cool thing in our narrative happens when we also place a couple of these striped versions, because as you can probably tell, yeah, they're just much bigger and more modern looking. And we're obviously going to have a few of them out here in the more modern expansion. You might have noticed this all new notification, and it's basically telling us that with the current setup, traffic can actually bypass the port gates when entering and leaving this area. And that's obviously because we have this road which we connected the auxiliary gate to. If I remove this, it's not an issue anymore. Now we just need to make sure that the only two entry points to the Trades Port of Meridian is this auxiliary gate, or the old main gate, and the modern gate up here. Now this one has the same issue, and just to kind of highlight what it's all about, if we were to grab a road, we could basically just build it here and connect it to any of the road connections in our city. And cargo traffic would basically just be able to completely bypass the gate, which we don't want. Now let's add some juicy container stacks to the Trades Port of Meridian. So once more we click the main gate to the port, and we have three options. Now these do differ in functionality in terms of the cost, upkeep, and the cargo storage, moving from small through medium to large. Generally, in terms of the visuals, they look kind of similar, with one exception, which is important for us. The large versions have these kind of cranes hovering above all the container stacks. And this is going to allow us to distinguish the modern expansion to the port even more from the original one, which is always cool. So I'm just gonna get a few of these added out here. Now these can snap pretty easily to any of the existing roads within the port. We can of course also disable snapping and place them much more freely, but it should work just fine. Now I like to, at the very least, try to control some of the cargo traffic flow out here by using one-lane roads, but yeah, my success usually varies because I'm not great at traffic management, but it's more fun trying to figure it out at the very least. And if we're lucky, without me actually planning for it, I might be able to just about squeeze in a third segment. Oh, beautiful. I did leave a bit of space here because I had a bit of an odd idea, really. Not sure if this is gonna work, but I'm gonna give it a go. I was hopeful I could have a continuous curve connecting like this to allow for a more smooth transition to this road here. It seems to kind of work. And maybe I need something like this as well. Things are getting pretty complex for the container port out here. Very cool. Now, obviously, we have a bit of empty space here, but we can actually grab the existing surfaces of the container port and just kind of fill in the blanks. Alternatively, you can use any other surface, and I actually like to do that because the surfaces of the container port and these roads in particular, these networks, they're pretty bright. Now this very much depends on the map you're playing on and like the time of day as well. But in my case, it's pretty bright, it's pretty striking. So just adding some darker textures helps add a bit of contrast. The system is very flexible and everything can be moved around. So in this case, where I have kind of angled the container yards on the very end of the pier, these two cranes seem a little misplaced, so I can just grab each one of them and relocate them. I can bring this one much further out to, let's see, about here, and just grab this guy as well and get him moved across from this road. We can also reduce the slightly extreme symmetry between the three major container yards by grabbing the center one and relocating it, and we're basically just trying to make sure we angle it to a different road, just like this. So that, yeah, I think that helped a little bit with my OCD, and functionally it still works exactly like it's intended to. And for the original port area, let's just add 2 medium and 2 small container stacks. Alright, so we've now connected the old main gate to Meridian's traffic network, but I don't want to add too many roads as part of the actual port facilities just yet, because we've got so many additional assets to be adding, and some of these are pretty sizable. We've got a small, medium and large warehouse, and the large one is, yeah, it's proper huge. So there's really lots of opportunity here to build massive ports, especially if I zoom out, you can kind of see that the designated port area in which you can place these buildings is just, it's massive. So this should be enough for everyone. And of course, if you utilize Anarchy, you can move beyond this border and make the port as big as you want to, really. In our specific case, I think we're just going to utilize the small cargo warehouse. Because the roads, as you can probably tell, are zonable, so I'm just gonna get some generic industry down here as well to add jobs and kind of help with the industrial vibes. A more exciting building I also want to try and place is the intermodal train terminal. Now, this one is really cool because you can place it freely, and it's obviously going to allow direct connectivity to your freight rail network. The only issue is that I didn't really plan to use this one, or rather I just forgot it, I think. And I think it would be cool for it to be a part of like the main cargo area on the modern expansion. So I'm gonna see if I can just reshuffle things a little bit and squeeze this guy in instead. Oh yeah, a few things are as effective as a random train line to add a bit of interest to a build. We still need to sort out some connectivity here at the modern gate, and I'd like to just keep things relatively simple, so I think we're just going to continue the one-way segments here for, well, I mean, we'll need to kind of make a bit of a curve, but otherwise this segment can be relatively straight. We might be able to fit in some of the special port buildings in here to kind of utilize this space. And then at some point over here, we'll of course need to kind of branch out into two smaller lanes. So in this case, we'll need one that just connects directly and feeds into the container stacks, the container yards. And I think for good measure, we're going to have one that kind of moves into this intersection as well. And then moving from the other end to the gate to actually leave the port, which is the segment we're creating right now, I think we'll just do something that kind of feels a little similar, really. So we can actually just about squeeze in the port security building, which is a base of operations for the port security, preventing criminal activity right next to the gate in between the two branches here, which is that's perfect, I imagine. And then we have the employee canteen, which we can actually the canteen is probably a bad fit here because the only road access is to actually utilize this segment like all the trucks would. So I imagine maybe the canteen, we'd kind of move that and we'll just add the canteen to the side like this, and then have a bit of parking maybe on this side here, just opposite of it. And I guess if you need to make a smooth turn here for unknown reasons, maybe you've forgotten something before you can actually leave the port. Maybe you've forgotten the container you arrived to pick up. Not sure how realistic that is. A few more buildings and upgrades to add, one being the customs office upgrade, which has a couple of distinctive effects citywide, as well as a 1 kilometer crime rate reduction. It also visually adds these details to the actual gate, which is cool. And then we also have the emergency response. And I don't mind that being within this awkward space, because we're not really going to be able to zone anything in here, or rather we don't want to, so let's just get that placed. And now I am curious to see if I can just squeeze in a tiny parking lot, a motorcycle parking lot. I'm just gonna place it because it looks more interesting than a regular parking lot. So let's not wait any further with connecting up the main gate to Meridian's road network, as well as a bridge connection here by the mouth of the river, so that the two parts of the port are interconnected. Alright, so the port is finally open for business and people are starting to get hired, and it currently offers 265 jobs, which I think is pretty cool given the relatively small size, and especially compared to the vanilla container port, which I think had what, 60 or 75 jobs even after upgrades. Oh well, anyways, let's get some actual cargo ship routes added. And we're going to start with the two smaller routes. So I'm just gonna quickly pause so that we can control exactly the types of ships and how many ships we want here. So this one is going to go to East Gate, and this line is going to go to Lynn. Then we'll add in the 2 major routes as well. This one is going to go to Sevenoaks, something. And this one is going to go to Clifford. Alright, so route 1 and 2 are the smaller ones. So I'm just gonna open the menu here. We're going to have only 2 assigned vehicles and make sure that it is the cargo ship and not the large cargo ship that is selected. So this one is already perfectly in order. Just gonna switch around for line 2 and then make sure that it is actually the large cargo ship that is utilized for the 2 other routes. So it's actually a bit of a race to see which ship docks first. We've got a small container ship carrying 150 tons of grain originating in Lynn. And then we have a larger container ship carrying 150 tons of convenience food originating in Seven Oaks. Okay, so it's relatively simple actually. What we should see though is that as soon as they deliver this cargo, it appears right here in the stored service resources overview. And then we should eventually see exports being stored here as well for the ships to then take to the other cities. And we should see local trucks moving into the port to grab some of these resources for whatever production chain they have available here in Meridian, in theory at least. Either way, a really cool feature of the DLC is these reach staggers that you will see operate throughout your container yards. That is just such a cool little thing. I don't know how accurately they depict how this stuff is being handled, but either way, it just feels super interactive. We're gonna quickly wrap up the trades port with a bit of generic industry, a few service buildings, some parking lots and detailing before moving on to building a fishing port for Meridian. Alright, so as I was detailing this, I had this weird conflict, because on the one hand I sorely miss all my mods because I feel super restricted detailing in the vanilla game. And then on the other hand, it's also a pretty fun challenge to see what we can actually create by just trying to be creative with the usage of the props we do have available. Lots of surfaces and some bushes. If there's something I'm really missing, it's some stain and dirt decals to just kind of industrialize this area a little more, but otherwise I'm pretty happy with the result. Oh, and of course it's very much functional with more than 900 jobs now. Alright, so onwards to fishing, something I'm pretty excited about because this is something I've had to just kind of roleplay in my previous cities. This is an entirely new specialized industry. Interestingly, there's the ability to plop down an inland fish farm, and I'm gonna do that quickly to highlight why I'm not gonna be using this all that much. I think the concept is pretty cool. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not too sure about the execution. I think it looks a little odd, to be honest. So I will say that I think the base asset here is pretty cool, and then a few sub buildings are going to like automatically spawn on this big patch of dirt, I guess, and it just looks a little odd. That's the best way I can describe it. Now, something that is fairly cool is that you can add these small, medium or large cold storages, which is something that I definitely think adds a bit of flair to a build like this. But yeah, I mean, I guess functionally it is pretty cool that if you don't have access to a fish-rich water source, then being able to produce it inland is a nice functionality. Aesthetically though, yeah, it's a little odd. We're gonna let it sit here just to kind of see some of the sub-buildings spawn, because currently it's very empty. But I guess you can kind of guess by my tone that I am much more excited about the fishing and open water fish farming. So as we select this version, we also get an overview of where there is plenty of fish in our open waters. Now, something that's pretty cool is that we can see the total available fish amount throughout the entire map, but also the renewal rate. Now, this is interesting because you can apparently overfish your current stock, which I think is pretty cool. Anyways, to conduct some actual open sea fishing, we'll have to place down a small fishing port. And I don't want to place it too close to the trades port because of, I don't know, pollution, and basically there's pretty much no fish in this water. So I do have an area here called Seaside, which I think is a much better fit. I'm just gonna place it freely and create the road layout afterwards. The open water fishing hub also has these medium, large and small cold storages, so let's just add a few of these just for a bit of detailing, as well as a super quick parking lot. Next up, we've got to designate a fishing area. So as we select Frank's Fish Stick Factory, well, I guess it makes sense, and then we'll click fishing area. And we get a kind of a district tooling. And I did purchase this tile out here because there seems to be plenty of fish right next to this narrow sea lane, which I think is pretty much perfect. So if I just move close to the lane, we can kind of see that I can connect directly to it, meaning that the boats should be able to reach this area fairly easy. And then I can move real close to the sea lane, but I can't encroach on it, which I guess makes sense. We don't really want the container ships to potentially run into the small fishing boats. And we can kind of see the harvestable resource count increasing as I'm starting to map out with this district tooling. And we're gonna sit at 674 tons, which I don't know if that's good or bad, but it sounds like a lot. Moving back to Frank's place, we can't actually map out a fishing route just yet because we don't have any place to actually connect it to the fish factory. What we'll need to do first is to expand it with a fishing harbor pier. And it will easily connect to the existing little pier stop that is a part of the base building. And then as we drag it out, we can kind of see from the UI when we have enough space to set up a few permanent fishing boats that can attend to the routes we'll be creating. Now, I'd hope this would be a little more flexible because it seems like we need to we need to make this pier very large to actually get this to work. But I guess, yeah, I guess it's all right. But you can kind of see the issue I'm having when we try to kind of expand. We'll get issues with overlapping items, and so if you just want a small fishing port, it's gonna look something like this. Which, yeah, I would like a little more flexibility here, like the ability to just kind of overrule these two fishing boat spots by actually being able to make like a side pier. But and maybe it is possible. I just haven't figured it out. Now, a pretty cool thing is that we can add a narrow boatway, which is even smaller than the small sea lane we've got out here. So we could actually divert some of the fishing boat traffic away from the current major ship traffic we're having, which, you know, that could be something you might want to do. But I think in our case, we're just going to use it to mainly just make sure that the fishing boats can actually just reach the main sea lane. We're now ready to set up the actual fishing route tool, and it is fairly simple. We've got 2 spots as part of the small pier we've already created, and we can just divert that to the fishing and open water fish farming area, move back, and that is a complete route. So we're just gonna make sure we do that for both of these, and it seems like we are starting to, let's see, when do we have a fishing boat actually spawn here? Interestingly, there's 3 different boat versions we can utilize, which I think is awesome. So I'll just make sure that any of the 3 can actually spawn at any of these 2 places, because that's just gonna give more variety. And here we go. So this is the small fishing boat, and in my opinion, it's like the perfect asset. This is what I see as a small fishing boat, but it should be said that the nearest place to me in terms of my real life location that have actual small fishing boats, they look exactly like these, almost down to the specific color scheme as well. I do hope we get a mod sometime that will allow us to individually adjust the speed of all the vehicles in game. Actually, maybe I'm just a huge nerd. Actually, I am a huge nerd, but I would love for this fishing boat to have a slightly more realistic speed, because this looks like it's going 60 or 70 kilometers an hour, which is pretty impressive. But I guess the same can be said for cargo ships. I mean, look at this. This girl, she's just powering through. So I'm pretty interested in seeing how this actually works when it enters the designated fishing area. Seems like it does enter and just kind of sits. No, it moves around. Before we move on from the fishing industry, I want to backtrack just a little bit, at least, on my complaints about the lack of flexibility, because one thing you can actually do is that if you just build out the first main fishing harbor pier without it actually spawning potential boats. So if you just keep it like this, 84 meters basically, and you just place this without it being functional yet, you can actually just branch out from this existing area, and you can create something that looks a little more interesting and maybe, you know, has a bit more character. So like you can do stuff like this, for instance, which I think looks well, it definitely looks more substantial and better. We now have 6 routes all set up, which should eventually see many more boats, and I think aesthetically it just looks a lot better. While we're on the topics of aesthetics, something that I think is very important to highlight is that we now have actual yacht and sailing boat props, and they actually float and they look fantastic when placed. I wish we had even more models, but even this is just going to really help. So I think we can all quickly imagine that we can just branch out and create like a pier network really quickly, where we just add a few of these, and it's just going to look fantastic. It's going to add so much character, even though it is arguably a really small thing. Just look at them bopping up and down. Wonderful. So we started this project with lots of money in the bank and a positive budget surplus. And yeah, things have certainly gone downhill since then. I think the main sinner is probably the port. Not that a port won't be like an economic advantage in the long run, but it's a very large port compared to the size of Meridian. But I'm hopeful that the final chapter of this video, which is going to be Big Oil, is going to turn things around. Oh, look, we have massive oil deposits right next to the port. How fortunate a coincidence. Seems only natural then that we expand the trades port of Meridian with the all-new specialized industry type, offshore oil drilling. Although importantly, I don't want to connect the oil port directly to the network of the trades port because I don't want to have to funnel all the traffic to the oil port through the main or the auxiliary gate of the port, because that's just not necessary. So we're just gonna remove a beach to build oil industry, which just feels so right when we're just trying to make a buck here. Then we're gonna do some terraforming and set up the main specialized industry offshore oil building. Super basic starting layout, but we just kind of need a sense of scale here and to check if things are even going to function and line up, because these oil tankers are pretty sizable, so we do need ample room on either side. So grabbing the offshore oil rigging, we need to kind of spawn the starting building just like with the fishing port. And once again, this one looks pretty awesome. So we're just gonna place it right here, and then the very first thing I'm going to do is, just like with the fishing port, we need to add a pier that we can then have spawn spots for the oil tankers, the ships basically. And I think we're just gonna start by trying to work with this, because I don't know if I have enough space between the existing lane here, the seaway used by our container ships, and then this little peninsula. We'll see. No, we don't. Now let's try getting this pier in place, and I might attempt something similar as with the fishing port, so a segment that doesn't spawn any ships just yet, and then maybe branching off a segment to the side like this, and then I wonder if I can just... I can just about get a second ship in place. Okay, so I had to buy this additional tile just to fit in the piers, and then I bought a bunch more to make sure that lots of the harvestable oil is actually within our grasp. Of course, as an effect of this, our budget deficit is even greater, so I'm really hoping that this black gold is worth all the fuss. And the only way to find out, of course, is to get some actual drilling rigs out here, and we have two versions. We have the compliant tower oil platform, which, as you can see, has a pretty long radius from the port, but it's nothing compared to the semi-submersible oil platform, which you can place even further away, like twice the distance. And the main difference here is that the compliant tower requires these oil pipelines to run directly from it all the way back to the oil port, I assume, while the semi-submersible oil platform will allow the actual oil tankers, the actual ships, to just set up a route and carry oil back and forth. In any other circumstance, I would probably play with Anarchy, and then you can place them wherever you want. But I think we're going to place both. So let's start with the compliant tower platform, and we're just going to place that relatively close so that they're not too close together. So I will just place that right here, and you can place it anywhere. It doesn't have to be connected to a sea lane, because obviously it doesn't interact with any ship traffic. And then I'm just going to grab the oil pipeline here, and assuming... yeah, I can move it into these the piers here. I'm just gonna add it to both. I don't really know why, but that should work. Next up is the semi-submersible oil platform, which I think is going to look a little more interesting in action because it is dependent on ship traffic. Doesn't seem like it really matters where I place it as long as there's as much oil as possible underneath, which should be the case right here. And then let's just get a couple of connections up with some of these narrow sea lanes. We'll add some good connectivity to Meridian's road grid and then get our first shipping line connected. I'd like to see both of the oil harbor piers to be in use, but not necessarily all the 4 oil tanker berths. So let's just grab this one right here, connect that out to the offshore oil drilling platform, and we'll grab the innermost from this segment and get another connection in place. And I find it super interesting that we effectively have 2 different oil ships we can utilize here. So I think I'm gonna make sure that one route has the oil product tanker. That would be route 1. And then I'm going to grab the other route, route 2, and make sure it has the super tanker, just to kind of see the difference between the 2. And I guess we haven't even had a look at these structures yet. So the compliant tower oil platform is a pretty nice looking asset, actually. It's pretty small as well, so I guess functionally that's nice. It's not too obtrusive because usually you have these way out at sea, which is not necessarily possible given the range limitation. And then the semi-submersible oil platform is much more beefy. It's a much larger structure, and I guess it's what I would kind of think of when I think of an oil platform. And we do have the very first ship that has just spawned from one of the berths, and it is the smaller version, I assume, the oil product tanker. Let's have a look at this asset. Oh, that is very nice looking indeed. I can't wait to utilize all these new ships and boats as prop versions. I don't imagine there'll be like a fancy animation or anything, but let's just see how this actually works. I'd love to be able to see just how much oil it's actually carrying, but I guess we'd have to click the actual oil port for an idea of that. It seems like we're storing 6.5 ton already. It's going to be interesting to see if the second route actually spawns the super tanker and if that sees any use, because I think it took a little while for our fisheries to spawn additional boats, but it does seem like we now have the net fishing boat in place as well from one of the 6 routes we established, and it looks like it looks like more of a big business fishing vessel compared to this one. So yeah, I love the variety. As we wait for all this oil to hopefully salvage our broken economy, we're of course going to check some of these storage upgrades available to the offshore oil drilling area hub, as it's formally called, ranging from small to medium to large. And they of course snap to roads, but there's one interesting aspect of these, and it is that they don't actually require a road connection. So while I may move in and see if I can just squeeze in all 3 versions within this grid, which I guess would be a pretty fitting showcase, we could also do something like grabbing these bigger versions and just kind of aligning them alongside this road right here. But instead of utilizing the roads to, well, create roads as would otherwise be necessary if they required it, we can maybe just, I don't know, implement like a surface or something instead to connect them to the roads. And anything that makes things look a little more custom in your vanilla setup, I will take. So let's just do that and see how that looks. I reckon that's a pretty decent first vanilla oil port. I squeezed in a bit of generic industry as well, just to add a bit of extra flair and a few more jobs, obviously, because the actual oil port only employs 15 people. We've also got some non-functional rail lines here, but any train nerd will tell you that even non-functional rail is good rail. Oh, and finally, we have a bunch of trees as well, just to kind of greenwash this whole operation. Speaking of the operation and any potential greenwashing, I'm not making any money yet, so yeah, it hasn't turned things around just yet, and I'm not sure it even will, but it is certainly a cool addition to the city. There's just a couple of things I want to quickly showcase from the DLC before we wrap up this video. And to showcase the first segment, I'm just gonna recreate a beach. Now I did remove one naturally secluded, beautiful beach even, to make room for an oil port. So I think it only fair that I kind of pay back by maybe just adding a new one. So we're just adding a quick beach promenade here with a small beach as well, and most importantly, some zonable space. Because we have two new commercial zones as part of the Bridges and Ports DLC, one for the North American and one for the European theme. In fairness, they are generic enough so that you can use both in pretty much all your cities, and they are waterfront business zones. They include stores, boutiques, gas stations, supermarkets, restaurants, motels, bars, travel agencies, and more, and they look fantastic. And there's quite a few assets in here. So let's just pause the game, utilize the full commercial demand bar we have, and zone a bit of everything. So if I go for a 2x3 North American, a 2x4 European, and then we match that with a 3x3, and we kind of just let's just make sure that we have plenty of variety in anything we add here, so that we can kind of get the full spectrum of things. And they look pretty good, honestly. And this is a pretty small selection, all level 1s as they just spawned, obviously. And if you start mixing in some of the existing signature buildings, like the this Villa City we already have available to us from the vanilla game, and stuff from some of the other DLCs, then things are really going to shape up. Like, who wouldn't want a lobster restaurant by the end of the promenade to kind of finish off the walk? I know I would. While we're on the topic of signature buildings, the Bridges and Ports DLC ships with what might be my new favorite signature building. You get it? Ships with, yeah, that's funny. To showcase this bad boy, which is a truly magnificent asset, I have prepared a large plot of land next to the trades port. So we'll open the signature menu, move into industry, filter for the DLC, and we have two options. The first one is a fish and chippery seafood factory, which I'm certain is really nice. Actually, it's a really nice asset. But I imagine it's the Seafarer Shipyards, which is really going to steal the show, because it has already stolen my heart. Let's just get it placed. Would you just look at this asset? That is just awesome. And I love that it isn't symmetrical at all, and how the piers are shaped and all the resources available, and the massive hangars. This is marvelous. And I do not know if this is the best location, but I think it stays. But yeah, you get to grab the save, so you can do whatever you want with it. But I just love this asset. It is fantastic. Alright, I do feel a little bad about not placing the seafood factory, because we should be super excited to get new industry signature buildings. So let's just get rid of something I am a little less excited about. Goodbye. Let's see. Now that is a lot better than what was here previously. And pretty nice looking. 42 employees, that seems oddly low. But yeah, new signature buildings are always nice, and this one is no exception. There's also a bunch of new pretty sizable parks to explore and place, some of them with new Ferris wheels. But the thing I'm most excited about, and which I think fits best into the context of wrapping up Meridian, is the addition of lighthouses. 4 of them in total. We have the small lighthouse, and I'm just gonna move out to this little new peninsula I have magically spawned. We've got a small lighthouse, which is only 10,000 bucks and very cozy. I guess this is the medium lighthouse. Moving on to the large lighthouse. And finally, in tourist attractions, we even get the old lighthouse, which is a very popular tourist attraction with plus 25 outdoor recreation. And it is mighty expensive, but what better way to wrap up this save and deliver it all to you guys through my Patreon than by going into a bit of debt just to get a lighthouse. Oh yes. Let's grab $1 million, so we've got a bit of change to have fun with as well. Or you all have a bit of change, I guess. And place this at the very edge of the world. That's a little dramatic, just the edge of the peninsula here, but you kind of get the idea. And it did very, very little terraforming when I placed it, which is absolutely perfect. That is nice. Just gonna quickly get it connected, of course. Okay, I get why it's an old tourist attraction, because yeah, the light output isn't fantastic just compared to the more modern medium version. Anyways, a few final thoughts as we've now wrapped up the builds. I think first off, it's actually been pretty fun building some vanilla stuff again. If you're a subscriber and thus a part of my community, you will know that I usually utilize about as many mods as I can. But this has been a breath of fresh air. As for the Bridges and Ports DLC, there's undeniably a ton of content here. And while I find specifically the inland fish farm implementation to be very awkward, and I don't think I'll be using it all that much, I do think all the other content more than makes up for it, especially due to how modular and flexible it is. Because ultimately that is what, to me at least, enables replayability. Like in this instance, I've already explored most of the container port features in this video, but that doesn't make me any less excited about implementing new modular container ports in all my other cities, which I guess is ultimately what I want from a DLC. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this new content and any input or feedback to the build, of course. Either way, thank you for watching and consider subscribing if you enjoy my content. I do hope to see you all in the next one. Goodbye.